The moment she laughed and climbed onto him, the ship felt colder, because something unseen had begun to wake, and the silence that followed her smile was heavier than any scream. He lay there beneath the pale lights, wrists bound, ribs cracked, breath shallow, a human no one wanted, not his own kind, and not the stars that swallowed his home. A survivor of a lost colony, where soldiers came with flags and left with fire, where leaders promised safety and delivered graves. And when he lived while others died, they called him cursed and sent him away to rot. So, when the alien hunters found him bleeding in the dust, he did not beg. He only closed his eyes and waited to be erased. They named him Subject 9. They did not ask his real name. They never do. Valith was assigned to observe him, to study the strange quiet of humans who had nothing left. And when she saw him, she felt disappointment more than curiosity, because he did not rage or plead or even look afraid. He just stared at the wall like someone already dead. And to her kind, that meant weakness, something to poke and test for knowledge. She circled him, spoke softly, touched his face with fingers that glowed faint blue. And when he did not react, she smiled, convinced he was empty inside. So she did what her people did when bored. She crossed boundaries. She straddled him lightly, laughing, calling it harmless fun, an experiment in pressure and reaction. Because humans were said to be emotional toys, creatures driven by simple urges. His body stiffened, not in desire, but in memory, because once long ago, someone had climbed onto him with a smile before soldiers burst in and dragged his brother away. And the weight on his chest now mixed past and present until his heart pounded like a warning drum. He tried to stay still, because stillness had saved him before, but his breathing changed, deeper, slower, and Valith felt it and paused, confused, sensing something wrong. When his eyes met hers, they were no longer hollow. They were burning with pain held back for too long. And she felt fear for the first time in centuries, because she realized he was not reacting as prey, but as something choosing restraint. She tried to move away, suddenly unsure, but her legs trembled, and the human beneath her whispered a single broken word, enough, not in anger but in pleading, because he did not want to become what the universe kept pushing him to be. Alarms did not ring. Systems did not respond. The only thing moving was the truth rising between them, and Valith understood too late that humans were not weak because they lacked power, but because they were taught to fear it. Guards stormed in, misunderstanding everything as always, weapons raised, shouting orders in a language he barely understood, and Valith screamed for them to stop. But the first blast hit his side and burned flesh and memory together, and pain tore through him like the night his mother fell. The curse inside him woke fully then, a weapon placed on rebels by alien rulers to make them obedient or dead, a mark that fed on fear and loss. And as blood pooled beneath him, he felt it pulling him toward darkness, whispering that surrender would be easier. Valith collapsed beside him, hands shaking, realizing her cruelty had triggered this, that her harmless fun had reopened wounds the universe never let heal. And she pressed her glowing hands against his chest, begging him to live, telling him she was sorry, that she saw him now, not as a subject, but as a person who had endured too much. The guards fired again, betrayal sharp and final, because they feared what they could not control. And the human took the blast meant for her without thinking, because even broken, even cursed, he still chose to protect rather than destroy. His vision blurred, memories flooding in, laughter before war, promises before fire. The face of his brother screaming his name as chains pulled them apart. And he felt himself slipping, feeling small and alone again. But then Valith pressed her forehead to his and whispered that his pain mattered, that his survival was not a mistake, that he was not cursed but forged. Something inside him cracked then, not with rage, but with clarity. And instead of fighting the curse, he accepted himself, scars and all, and the energy surged not wild but focused, a quiet storm of will and memory, knocking the guards back without killing them, because he refused to become an executioner. The ship shook as systems failed, not from damage, but from choice, because human will had overridden alien design. And in the silence that followed, he stood, shaking, bleeding, alive, the curse unraveling like chains falling away. Valith knelt before him, tears burning her eyes, seeing not a monster, but a survivor who had every reason to hate and still chose mercy. Other aliens watched from corridors, fear mixing with awe, because the hierarchy they trusted had been challenged by a human who would not break. He did not declare war. He did not demand revenge. He only asked to leave, to carry the memory of those lost without being hunted anymore. Valith stood beside him, defying her rulers, knowing she would be cast out, but choosing exile over obedience, because his humanity had awakened something in her people had buried. As they walked toward an escape vessel, alarms finally screaming, he staggered, near collapse, and she held him, realizing strength was not dominance but endurance, not control but compassion. When the stars stretched ahead and the ship behind burned, he looked out into the dark and whispered the names of those he lost, promising to live in a way that honored them. And Valith listened, learning that hope was not loud or bright, but fragile and stubborn, carried by those who refused to surrender their humanity, even when the universe tried to strip it away. And somewhere in the endless night, a broken human and a changed alien began a journey not of conquest, but of survival, bond, and the quiet belief that pain did not have the final word.